Hello and welcome to our next lesson for IELTS Writing Task 2. Today we'll understand how to structure our essay. By the end of the lesson, you'll have a clearer understanding of the 4-point Task 2 structure, and you'll understand exactly what you need to write in each of the 4 sections for our Task 2 structure. As it was a few lessons since we last saw this 4-point structure, let's take another look at it now. The best thing about using this outline for your Task 2 essay is that it can be used for any question type. It really is a very simple and flexible way to order your essay. So we begin with an introduction paragraph, and I'll be showing you exactly how to write that in the next part of this lesson. Then we have 2 supporting paragraphs where all your details and thinking are put. The final section is our conclusion, and this may or may not include your opinion. This depends on whether the question asks you to give your opinion. Now we'll look how you can write a really good introduction. So for any Task 2 essay, your opening introduction paragraph can be made of 3 sentences. And I have a formula that I'm going to show you so that you can always write effective introductions. Our first sentence will paraphrase the question that we have been given. Now, you may remember that paraphrasing is a really important skill, and that synonyms are a very important part of this skill. Use synonyms to rewrite the question in 1 sentence only. In our second sentence, we will plan our essay's viewpoint. Effectively, we will tell the reader or the examiner exactly what our essay believes or feels. It could be that your essay will purely discuss the advantages and disadvantages of a topic, or it could be that the essay is agreeing or taking sides with a group of people's opinion. Whatever your essay's overall idea, we'll put that here. In sentence 3, we will quickly tell the examiner or reader what we will write in supporting paragraph 1 and supporting paragraph 2. And that is all. 3 sentences that you can use to write your introduction. So let's take a look at some examples to help you understand what this 3-sentence structure exactly is. An easier way to remember what each sentence is by remembering paraphrase, plan, and outline. Let's read through our question. Many people believe that wealth is a measure of success. Do you think that wealth is a good measure of success? What do you think makes a successful person? Now, the first thing that we should identify is that this is a 2-part question. Obviously, we would do a plan and then we'd move on to writing our introduction. Here is what I have for my first paraphrase sentence. A person's financial situation is often considered a good measure of success. Now, as you can see, I've used a few synonyms to paraphrase the first sentence from the question. I believe that paraphrasing the question straight away shows the examiner you really understand what the question means. After that, you can give your plan. And here I am telling the examiner that I disagree that wealth is a true measure of how successful people are. Next, I'll move on to my outline sentence and describe what I will discuss in supporting paragraph 1 and 2. By using the time openers firstly and secondly, I can tell the examiner what I will be writing in each supporting paragraph. Again, this shows that you fully understand the question and can plan to give a real response and answer the question. Here is the introduction, completely pieced back together. A person's financial situation is often considered a good measure of success. This essay disagrees that wealth is a true measure for how successful people are. Firstly, this essay will give reasons for why wealth is not a good measure. And secondly, I will define what I believe a successful person is. And there you have it, the first example of your 3-sentence introduction. Before we move on to the supporting paragraphs, I think it would be helpful to take a look at another example of an introduction for a different question type. Let's move on to that now. In recent years, pre-prepared convenience foods have grown in popularity to suit people's fast-paced lifestyles. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this trend? Now, the first thing I can see is that this is an advantages and disadvantages question, and it doesn't ask me to give an opinion, so I know that I don't have to include that when I get to the conclusion. But we're on our introduction, so let's see my first sentence for the introduction. The last few years have seen a dramatic rise in the consumption of fast foods. Synonyms that I've used here are fast foods instead of convenience food. And instead of recent years, I said the last few years. I would say that that's pretty straightforward and simple paraphrasing, but really effective to introduce your essay. Let's see sentence 2. So here is my plan, or the overall idea of this essay. Simply, I just say that I'm going to explore the advantages and disadvantages of the fast food, speedy eating trend. And here is sentence 3. Firstly, I will discuss the negative impact that convenience foods can have. And secondly, I will discuss the positive impacts of fast foods. Quite straightforward, and I've also used synonyms to not repeat myself too often. And as well, notice that I've used those 2 time connectives, firstly and secondly. And here it is all pieced back together. The last few years have seen a dramatic rise in the consumption of fast foods. This essay will explore the advantages and disadvantages of this trend. Firstly, I will discuss the negative impact that convenience food can have. And secondly, I will discuss the positive impacts of fast foods. So there it is again, your 3-sentence introduction. All you have to remember is to paraphrase, plan, and outline. Find some example questions for IELTS Writing Task 2 online and practice creating a few introductions for them. Before we move on, here is a quick quiz. In many developing or recently industrialized countries, air pollution and quality of drinking water is becoming a major issue. What measures could be taken to improve the situation? Pause the video and read through the 3 introduction sentences below the question. I want you to try and figure out which of these 3 sentences links with the 3-step introduction process of paraphrase, plan, and outline. Pause the video now and link the steps to the sentences. And here are your answers. I hope that you got that right and you're feeling fairly confident about writing introductions quickly and effectively. Let's move on to supporting paragraphs. Okay, I think now is a good time to share this master structure with you, and it covers all 5 questions. At first, it will be quite a lot to look at, but don't worry, I'll be talking you through it now. The main points to think about before we begin is that the introduction is always the same, and the conclusion doesn't change too much. That only leaves us with the supporting paragraphs, which, depending on the question, do change a little bit. So let me talk you through the master structure, beginning with the agree or disagree question. The main thing to remember for this question type is that you either choose to agree or disagree, not both. So the introduction remains the same, that 3-step, 3-sentence structure I just showed you. And in your first supporting paragraph, you can explore your first opinion. And in your second paragraph, you can explore your second opinion. The conclusion is to summarize the key points and almost 100% sure give your opinion, as I'm sure you'll be asked for it in the question. In the advantages and disadvantages question, the introduction remains the same. And in your first supporting paragraph, you need to discuss either an advantage or disadvantage. Only cover one in one paragraph. And in your second supporting paragraph, you'll need to discuss either the advantages or disadvantages, whichever one you didn't talk about in your first supporting paragraph. For the conclusion, summarize the key points and give your opinion if asked. In a discussion question, you'll be given 2 opposing points of views. So your first supporting paragraph should discuss the first point of view, and your second supporting paragraph will discuss the second type of thinking. In a problem and solution question, each of your supporting paragraphs will discuss one problem and one solution each. And finally, in a 2-part question, your supporting paragraphs will address each question one at a time. Of course, if the questions ask for your opinion, you need to include this in your conclusion. I'd highly suggest bookmarking this master structure or writing it down so that you have it for reference later. When writing your supporting paragraphs, there are 3 main sentence types that you need to include for almost all of the questions. That's a topic sentence, a support sentence, and an example sentence. The example sentence is really important, so you need to make sure you include a few of these in your supporting paragraphs. A topic sentence always comes first, and it gives the main idea that you would want to discuss, and it relates to the question. The support sentence explores your topic sentence in a little more detail and gives some extra information. And the example sentence provides a real-life example to give the examiner a better understanding of what you're talking about. Let's see how I use these 3 sentence types to create a really good supporting paragraph. We'll return to the question seen previously, all about the advantages and disadvantages of fast foods. Let's read through this supporting paragraph. Fast foods are a serious problem facing our societies for numerous reasons, but health and obesity are both huge concerns. As people become overweight, they will also have a higher chance of being ill. For instance, obesity is understood to be one of the major causes of heart disease in adults. Furthermore, many pre-prepared foods contain many toxic chemicals to keep the ingredients fresh. It is very difficult to always check what ingredients are in these foods, which is very worrying. For example, news reports often cite many preservative ingredients as being causes of cancer and other illnesses. So I've highlighted the topic sentences in blue, the support sentences in green, and the example sentences in red. I do suggest having 2 of each of the sentence types in each of your paragraphs. That way, you'll fully explore your ideas and answer the question in full. Now, this structure of using topic, support, and example questions is great for almost all questions, but I do advise using something slightly different for a problem and solution question. Let's take a look at that now. So here is my first supporting paragraph discussing problems and possible solutions for air pollution and quality of drinking water. In my first supporting paragraph, which you can see here, I'll only be talking about air pollution. To write a supporting paragraph for a problem solution question, we begin with a topic sentence that gives details as to what problem we'll be discussing. The supporting sentence gives extra information about the problem that we'll be exploring in this paragraph. Now here is the difference. In the solution sentence, we give a possible way that we could fix this problem. In my example, I suggest cutting down emissions from factories and cars. After the solution sentence comes a result, where we discuss the impact of the suggested changes made. So these two structures that I've just shown you will give you lots of support when it comes to writing supporting paragraphs. Do remember to always begin with a topic sentence. Now we'll move on to our final section, all about conclusions. The most important thing to remember about conclusions is that if you want to score band 6 or higher, which I'm sure you do, then your last paragraph must be a conclusion. Now for pretty much every question, I like to teach conclusions in two different ways. Firstly, it's either with one sentence that simply summarizes and paraphrases the main parts of your essay. The second approach is with two sentences, one sentence to summarize and another sentence to give your opinion and state how you feel about the topic. Now, I did say that these two structures work for almost all questions. Again, problem and solution questions have a slightly different approach, and we'll look at that later. So the question here is, should you write one sentence or two? And that completely depends on if the question asks for your opinion. Take a look at these IELTS Task 2 questions and decide whether your conclusion should be one sentence or two. Pause the video and match them up now. Okay, here are your answers. For the first question, we can easily see that we are asked to give an opinion. Do you agree or disagree? In the second question, we aren't asked to give an opinion, but only to discuss both sides of the argument. And finally, for our last question, we are asked if we feel that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So we need to give an opinion there as well. Here are two examples of good conclusions. In red, we have the summary of the key points from our essay, and in blue, we have our opinion. Let's read through the first conclusion. In conclusion, there are many benefits to allowing young people to drive a car, such as easier travel to work, although the negatives mean roads may be less safe with more inexperienced drivers. And conclusion number 2, to sum up, we currently use animals for many useful reasons, from food to clothing, although there are ethical issues to consider as well. In my view, the advantages vastly outweigh the disadvantages, and we should continue to use animals for our own use where needed. So here are two examples of a one-sentence and two-sentence conclusion. Now, I did say that problem-solution questions require a slightly different approach. So as the final part of this lesson, let's take a look at that. We'll return to the question of air pollution and the quality of drinking water and what measures could be taken to improve this. Now, in a problem-solution type question, your first sentence wants to summarize and paraphrase the main points of your essay. Your second sentence should make a recommendation as to how the problem can be solved and who should do it. Let's see the conclusion that I have for this question. In conclusion, the problems associated with pollution are clearly becoming a major issue in many countries. In my view, the government should prioritise cleaning the local environment and citizens' health above the financial rewards of industry and growth. So I have recommended that the government should be the ones who are taking responsibility and fixing this problem. First sentence is to paraphrase and summarize, and the second sentence is to make your recommendation. So that brings us finally to the end of this long lesson. I would suggest watching back some of the main parts of the lesson again if you feel that you still need to have a little bit more of a focus on certain parts. Here's a quick review. Remember to use the 4-step structure. Try to manage your time and make sure you answer the question in full. Do remember the Q&A section where I or another student could come and help you if you have any questions. Best of luck, take a rest, and I'll see you in the next lesson.